Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Hanging Out for a Living. Today, we have a very special guest with us, Megan Flanagan Mills. She's the owner of Flanagan Mills Insurance Agency. So, at Flanagan Mills, they believe in providing honest and trustworthy insurance services tailored to each client's unique needs. Their mission is not just about selling policies, but rather educating their clients to ensure that they feel confident and protected. We're excited to drive in or to dive into drive. See, I'm thinking insurance to dive into how Megan's approach aligns with our philosophy of building genuine, supportive business relationships. So, welcome to Hanging Out for a Living, Megan.
Thanks, Teresa. Glad to be here.
Great. Let's dive right into our questions because I want to respect your time here. So, understanding client needs, right? Your agency emphasizes a personalized approach to insurance. Can you share some examples of how you identify and address the unique needs of your clients?
Yeah, so we do both personal lines and commercial lines insurance. So I'm going to give you kind of an example of both. So personal lines insurance is, the typical auto, home, maybe a boat, whatever a client needs as far as their personal lives and the insurance for that. And for that, we particularly will look at, kind of the person as a whole, try to figure out what they really need and kind of dig a little bit deep on, um, you know, do they really need X, Y, and Z coverage? Do they need this, that type of thing. It's not about, for us, it's not about selling a policy like you mentioned. It's really about trying to figure out what the actual need is there. Um, so in general, we will, talk with the client about, how many cars do you have? How many drivers do you have? Do you have young kids? Do you have a house? Do you rent? Do you have any rentals or investment properties, that type of thing? Do you have a boat? Do you have a motorcycle? Do you have an RV? So all of those questions kind of come out while we're discussing with the client, and then we can kind of tailor the insurance based on that. And a lot of other agencies ask a client for their declarations pages. So, can you send me your current stuff and I'll just, compare apples to apples kind of thing.
Yeah.
And we don't generally, we don't even need those really because we're giving them our advice first. And then if they want us to compare apples to apples specifically, we can do that for sure. But generally speaking, we don't even ask for those pages because it doesn't really matter, if you will. I mean, it matters what they have currently, but we're also going to give them our best advice as far as what we think that they should have. So that's personal lines. As far as commercial lines, we work with a lot of small businesses as well. And one of the things that we're seeing often is just, how business is. It is busy, and insurance is the last thing that you have to do on your to-do list, and you just pay the bill and you move on and
Sure.
maybe don't look at it for years. And I have one client in particular who they got their policy when they were really a new business, and they um, were woefully underinsured
Mm.
by probably $150,000 in property coverage
Wow.
because they had purchased equipment and they had final product on the shelves and all of that kind of stuff. And I think that's a really important one, just to, from a business perspective, just to kind of make sure you're checking in on those every, couple years to make
Absolutely.
sure that you've got the right coverages in place for where your business is at this point. Because I mean, the whole point, right, is to grow. And
Right.
if we start off with policy one, that's probably enough, right? Whatever that amount
Yeah.
is. But as you grow, you have to really start thinking about, that growth and what you've purchased and that type of thing. And your policy needs to grow with you. In addition to, I know it sucks to spend more on insurance, but the reality is, if anything, God forbid, happened to that one client of mine the day before we put her new policy in place, she would have been in a lot of trouble.
Yeah, there you go. Exactly. And that what you just shared is really a nice segue into our next question, and that's about your educational focus. So we talk about educating your clients is one of your key pillars of your agency, right? What are some of the most common misconceptions about insurance that you encounter, and how do you address them?
Yeah, it's difficult, right? So I think, from a consumer standpoint,
Sure.
we're being, fed on a daily basis. Well, save 15% here, or, name your own price, using some of the
Mhm.
like catchy phrases that are out there in the marketing campaigns.
True.
But those are challenging, right? Because yeah, sure, you can name your own price and you could go to that carrier and do whatever you want as far as the cost of your insurance goes. But the reality is you're getting what you pay for essentially a little bit too. And so I think that is one of the challenges that we run up against all the time is just like pricing in general.
Mhm.
But other things I think that we run up against a lot is especially in auto insurance, it's very misleading. There's something in New York State called no fault coverage.
Mhm.
And people often think that that means that, well, New York State's a no fault state. So even if I get into an accident and it's my fault, nothing's going to happen to me or my insurance. And that's like completely false.
Right.
And the furthest from the truth, honestly. I mean, it's very, very, very strict right now with auto insurance in general. And no fault essentially only means that, let's say you and I got into an accident. Okay.
Okay.
It was my fault. My insurance is going to pay for my medical coverage. It's called personal injury protection.
Okay.
Your insurance is going to pay for your medical coverage, personal injury protection. That's the no fault part. Only that piece.
Wow.
So the medical piece is the only piece. Now, if you needed more medical care than the amount that's on your policy, that's where you would come to my insurance company and say, "Hey, this was Megan's fault, so I need to, collect from her bodily injury liability limits." But it's very misleading. No fault insurance is very, very misleading, and people don't really understand it. So that's, all of these things are the conversations that we're having on a daily basis. Full coverage is also very misleading too. Full coverage essentially just means that you have comp and collision on your car.
Sure.
Um, Comp and collision and usually rental car and towing, but that's not necessarily, it's not like an industry like there's nothing that says like you have full coverage. It's just the pieces of the coverage. But you could have minimum liability limits, and the minimum liability limits in New York State currently are 25, 50, 10. And what that means is 25,000 coverage per person, 50,000 for an entire accident, and 10,000 for property damage. So again, if you and I got into that accident and it was my fault, I would only have $10,000 to cover your vehicle. If you think about that from even if I did have what's called full coverage and I was covering my own vehicle, I still could be in a situation where I'm paying you a
Right.
significant amount of money to repair your car for an accident that I occurred or that I caused.
Exactly. It just what came to my mind as you're sharing all this was, you wouldn't wanna go to a dentist for brain surgery, right? So,
Right. Right.
just
Right.
saying,
Yeah.
just
And
saying.
yeah, and it's not it's difficult. I mean, there's so many intricacies in insurance that I think that's one of the things that keeps the need, I guess, for
Sure.
an actual insurance broker or an insurance agent because um, we can do it online, sure.
Yeah.
You could do it online. You could go to any of the big carriers, any of them, and bind a policy straight online. And they give you that option to do it. I think the part that keeps me in business, if you will, is just that we have the ability to have these conversations with people and make sure that they understand what they're actually really getting.
Exactly, and when you're having those conversations, you're building that trust and you're building those relationships, right?
Right.
So here at Hanging Out for a Living, we believe in the power of genuine relationships. How do you, well, you shared a little bit of how you do it, but how do you build and maintain trust with your clients and really ensuring that they feel supported beyond just the transactional aspects of insurance?
Yeah, so I think from the start of the policies, it's really, that personalized touch, having those conversations of like, what's important to you? What do we need to make sure that we're protecting? All of that kind of thing. But then in addition, the ability to have an annual review with us. So we do reach out to our clients on an annual basis, and whether that's through an email or a phone call, or depending on the situation. But we're often reaching out to them asking, has anything changed? Do we need to update anything? For our business clients, have you purchased any major equipment? All of those kinds of things are important questions for an annual review. So we tend to do that. We also have client appreciation events annually. So we try to, keep the clients that we have happy and also properly protected.
Absolutely, absolutely. We were talking about the hypothetical that you and I have an accident, right?
Mhm.
So let's talk a little bit about handling claims. Um, One of the most stressful times for clients, right, is when they have to make a claim. How does Flanagan Mills Insurance Agency support these clients through the claims process, really just to make it as smooth and reassurable as possible?
Yeah. So the first thing that we always ask our clients is to call us first. Unless it's after hours or the weekend or something like that and it cannot wait, call us first. And the reason for that is because I think one of kind of going back to misconceptions a little bit, um, I think people don't really understand that you don't have to file a claim for every single thing. Like, you don't need to. And I think that is really unclear in the insurance world.
Right,
Um, and a lot of times we will recommend somebody not to file a claim, and the reason is because it will cost more for them in the long run to file a claim, and it just essentially is less than their deductible, perhaps. So if they've got, I don't know, if they had some shingles blow off in a windstorm, right? And it
right,
was gonna be $750 to put those shingles back on, but their deductible is $1,000. If they file a claim that's a $0 claim, because 'cause they're not gonna get it paid anything from the insurance company,
right,
and it also just looks like, oh, well, from the insurance company standpoint, I guess, it looks like they're more apt to file claims than, somebody else, and
gotcha.
what that essentially does is gives, the insurance companies a little bit of pause on, do we want to insure this person in the future?
Wow,
Now, I'm not saying that every single client or every single situation would do
sure,
that, but or every company would do that, but it does, cause some doubt. And let's just assume, or let's just pretend that, that person, just had a series of bad luck. So they filed that first claim, and then a month later, they had a small fire. And then 2 months later or a year later, they had another windstorm that damaged a lot of roofing, right? So once you get one claim in the like 3-year period, one big claim, then the insurance companies start to think, do we want to insure this person? Maybe not. And sometimes they'll non-renew. Um, and trying to find new insurance for that person is gonna be difficult because they've now have 2 claims on their record. Let's
right,
assume there's another big one in a couple years. Well, then there's 3 in the last 3 years, and that is pretty much uninsurable,
yeah,
to be honest.
wow,
So, really, we wanna be really smart on whether we submit claims or not, and so that's why we tell people to call us first. So we don't want a situation where, we're putting in a claim that is really not gonna be covered, and we already know that it's not gonna be covered, so that's why we're telling people to call us first. And then as far as kind of the rest of the process, obviously, we'll help file the claim with the client. Claims adjuster at that point gets involved. The insurance companies do this, probably because they know insurance agents would just pay all the claims if we could. Um, but, they obviously have a designated claims adjuster, and
sure,
that person is the company representative who's gonna look at the entire, claim situation and figure out whether it's getting paid or not.
right,
That person's pretty much the go-to at that point, so they're really responsible for the claim. But if there's ever any issues, our clients know that they can call us and tell us like, "Hey, so and so is not getting back to us. What do we do?" Or, "Hey, I don't really think that this seems fair for the amount of settlement amount. What do I do?" So they
right,
can call us and kind of consult with us on what we think as well. throughout the claims process. And if we need to escalate it to somebody else or escalate to a supervisor, we have all that contact information on our systems. So we're able to help them in that regard if we're needed to do that.
Absolutely, absolutely. Like I said, you don't go to a dentist for brain surgery, so there.
Right. Right.
So, Megan, thank you so much for sharing your insights and fantastic work you're doing at Flanagan Mills Insurance Agency. It's really clear that your commitment to educating and supporting your clients really aligns perfectly with our mission here at Hanging Out for a Living. So, for everyone watching, if you want to continue the conversation with Megan or learn more about her agency, check out the description below for her contact information. And remember, building strong, supportive relationships is the key to success in any business. So until next time, keep hanging out for a living. Thanks so much, Megan. Bye, everybody.
Thanks.